saying, goodness gracious me. This is Greg. This is day 17 of me doing a YouTube live and a article on my website. This episode's titled Beyond the Basics, Traumatic Brain Injury Part 2, Understanding the Basics of Traumatic Brain Injury, or TBI. I started yesterday with a mile-high overview. And just to recap, traumatic brain injuries are a major health concern caused by external impacts that result in changes in brain function and structure. Exploring the world, the TBI reveals different classifications based upon how severe the brain injury is and what the cause was. We're going to examine in more detail the various categories of TBI, try and provide some insight into some of the complexities that are associated with such a subject, from mild concussions to severe brain trauma, and hopefully we can gain a better understanding. I'd like to welcome you back to the channel, Minute in the Clouds with Greg. This is day 17. My name's Greg Shaw, and the last 16 days I've been doing this broadcast. If you haven't watched any of the other videos and you would like to do so, that would be great. Check them out. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. If you like today's video, and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and the newsletter. One day I will produce a newsletter over on the website. If you would like to be notified when new content is posted, go ahead and click the bell. It's not easy to create when you've got health problems. So I appreciate any feedback that you care to give on how I can make these videos better, any suggestions that you might have or content that you'd like to see me cover, and I'll try and do that. So let's dive in. From concussions to concussions to contusions, classifying traumatic brain injury. So it's a term that includes any disruption in normal brain function, all of the presence of brain damage, both caused by an external force. And that force can be from different sources, such as a fall, an accident, car accident, a sports-related injury. And to better understand and classify these types of injuries, a common classification system has been developed. The system categorizes TBIs based on their severity and the mechanism of the injury. So considering these factors, it enables health professionals to better diagnose TBI patients and can then tailor their approach to meet the specific needs and circumstances for each individual. The classification system not only helps provide appropriate medical care, but it also helps in research, and it just improves the overall understanding of traumatic brain injuries. By gaining more insight and knowledge about these types of injuries, we can look towards better prevention strategies and to enhance the quality of life for people who are affected by traumatic brain injury and their families, I might add. So based on severity, TBIs can vary greatly in the impact that it has on the individual people. Some being relatively minor disturbances, and others having profound life-altering consequences. And the severity of a TBI can influence both the immediate treatment that's required and the long-term prognosis. So categorizing TBIs based on the severity allows a systemic and focused approach to care, and hopefully ensuring that patients get proper and appropriate interventions. This categorization into the categories of mild, moderate, and severe gives clarity to healthcare professionals, patients, and their families about the nature of the injury and potential challenges that might lie ahead. So your mild TBI is often referred to as a concussion. That's characterized by temporary symptoms such as a headache, confusion, dizziness, memory complaints. And despite its classification as mild, the effects can be severe and persist for an extended period of time. The next one is moderate TBI. Moderate TBIs often result in a longer period of unconsciousness or amnesia after the injury. These injuries typically cause cognitive and behavioral impairments, which could be permanent, or they may resolve over time. And then you have your severe brain injury, traumatic brain injury. Severe TBIs are typically the result of significant force. Those type of injuries can lead to extended periods of unconsciousness, amnesia, and they might result in permanent cognitive, physical, and behavioral impairments. So that's one way that they're looked at. And then also based on the mechanism of the injury. And based on the mechanism of the injury, trying to understand the cause behind a traumatic brain injury. It's equally as important in determining the immediate and potential long-term impact. The manner in which the brain is injured often determines the immediate medical intervention, can identify expected recovery paths or complications. So classifying TBIs on the cause, that allows for a more personalized approach and better outcomes. From external forces to internal chemical imbalances, the following classifications provide a further insight into the diverse origins of TBIs. You have closed TBIs. A closed TBI occurs when the head receives a blunt force, typically striking an object or experiencing a rapid movement without penetration of the skull. For example, in a car accident, the brain can be jolted against the inside of the skull and result in an injury. And then there's the open or penetrating TBI, and this type of injury occurs when an object penetrates the skull and it enters the brain tissue. And an example of that could be a gunshot wound or injuries caused by a sharp object. And then there's the deceleration injuries. And they occur when the skull suddenly stops after being in motion, and it causes the brain to twist or move or jolt inside the skull, and that can result in a direct injury to the brain, shearing brain fibers. There's chemical or toxic. Some chemicals can harm the brain when ingested, leading to symptoms similar to those traumatic brain injury. And while not typically classified as TBI, they certainly can mimic TBI functions. And then there's hypoxia, anoxia. That occurs when the brain doesn't receive enough oxygen, and this can lead to cognitive and physical impairments similar to those caused by a traumatic brain injury, even though it's technically a different mechanism of injury. And then there's blast injuries, and they're common in military combat situations. The force from an explosion can cause traumatic brain injury, especially in closed spaces or in the proximity of a blast. There are other classifications, in addition to categorizing TBIs based on mechanism of injury and the severity of injury. There are other important classifications that provide further insight into the nature and the potential consequences of these injuries. These categories delve into different aspects of the TBI, highlighting various injury patterns and their implications. By understanding these classifications, we can obtain a more comprehensive view of the TBI's wider range of causes and effects. This, in turn, facilitates a more accurate diagnosis and tailored interventions. You have your diffuse axonal injury. That occurs when the brain moves within the skull, causing shearing or tearing of the brain's long connecting fibers known as axons. And that type of injury is commonly observed in car accidents, and it's considered one of the most severe forms of traumatic brain injury. There's counter-coup injury, and that occurs when the brain is injured directly beneath the point of impact and on the opposite side. And that happens when the force impacting the head is strong enough to cause a contusion at the site of impact. and it also moves the brain, causing it to slam into the opposite side of the skull. This topic is extremely complex, and it involves numerous interrelated factors, and that makes it both intricate and technical. There's countless aspects to exploring. There's so many that I could disappear down a rabbit hole for a month of Sundays. What a strange shame that is, isn't it? A month of Sundays. I've never tried to figure out its origin, but it's something that people in England say quite often. And speaking of England, in case you haven't noticed, apparently I still speak with an accent. That's funny because in the States, people say I've got a British accent. But people back in the UK, they say I've got a Yankee accent. Anyway, I'm going to try avoid going down the rabbit holes for a moment. Usually that's about as long as I can manage to pay attention and not explore those fascinating rabbit hole adventure worlds. And I just want to mention that there are also many other factors, some of which we may or may not discuss going forward, such as your concussions. There's a form of TBI that can occur to jolt to the head, involving the brain rapidly movement. There's brain hemorrhages, intracranial hemorrhage mechanisms, secondary brain injury, intracranial hematomas, secondary impact syndrome, shaken baby syndrome, even a form of TBI. But it is important to understand that people experience oftentimes a combination of these injuries simultaneously, and the outcomes can vary very widely depending upon the individual, the nature of the injury, and the intervention that was given can all affect it. So this concludes today's message. I hope that you found it informative. Join me again tomorrow as we'll explore the world of traumatic brain injuries a little bit more in depth. And what am I thankful for today? Well, today I'm grateful for my computer. It's a connection to the outside world, and without it, I wouldn't be able to create these videos and articles over on the website, or share a message of hope and kindness and mental health awareness online, which I do like to do. Also helps me learn new things and express my creativity. I'm really thankful for it. What are you thankful for today? Tell me in the comments, and again, let me know if there is any content or topics that you'd like me to discuss. As always, thank you for watching. I love you all. See you tomorrow, and as always, take care of your mind.